Hello everyone, join me as I walk you through how to draft a cow neck jumpsuit. First, I'm going to be starting with the pant pattern, and the first thing I'm doing is to mark my starting line. So I'm coming down from the tip of my paper by 1 inch, and I'll make a straight line there. So that line is now going to represent my waistline. So I'm going ahead to label that as my waistline. From the waistline, I'm going to mark downwards my hip point. Mine is 8 inches. I'll go ahead and mark that. Then from there, I'm going to also mark my crotch line. Mine is 10 inches and I'll mark that. Then from then, I'm going to also mark my waist to knee line. Mine is 19 inches and I've gone ahead to mark that. Then just so that I can have a straight line, I'm going to mark the same point on the other side of my paper. Then I'll connect all the points together to form a straight line. The next thing to do will be to label each of my lines appropriately so that I don't get anything mixed up. So we're going to be working from the waist to the knee first. Then when we're done with that, I'll open the paper to construct from my knee to the end of my trouser. Now we'll go ahead to insert our measurement. On the hip line, you are going to mark your total hip measurement divided by 4. You are going to mark the same answer or the same result on your crouch and also at the waistline. This will allow us to draw a straight line around that area. In order to get our crotch extension, you are going to divide the quarter of your hips by 4 and you mark it from that straight line that runs from the waist to the crotch line. I hope you get it. My own result was 2.25 and I went ahead to mark that. Now we'll go ahead and draw our crotch curve, and just so that you don't go in too deep, you can mark about 1.5 inches upward in like an angle 45 like I just did, and you use that to serve as a guide. And with the help of your French curve, you go ahead and draw out your crotch curve. The next thing we're going to do is to make our waist shaping. Notice how I am taking my waist measurement. My tape rule is going to start from the area where we have the crotch curve, and we are going to mark 1/4 of your waist circumference. Then you are going to connect that to your hip with your French curve. Now we need to find the midpoint of our pattern. How we are going to do it is on the crotch line, from one end to the other end, you are going to find the midpoint. So one easy way to do that is just to fold your tape rule into 2 and you are going to mark that. When you stretch that out, you are going to see what your midpoint is. Mine is about 5.5. Then I'll go ahead to mark 5.5 on my waistline and also on my knee line. This will just allow me to be able to have a straight line. So I'll go ahead and make my straight line now. The next thing is going to mark my knee measurement. So the knee measurement I'm working with is 16. So 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. So I'm going to share that 8 inches on both sides of my center line. So that will be 4 on each side. So I've gone ahead to mark that. Now I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect my crotch to my knee. It just helps it to give it a better shaping instead of using a straight ruler. So notice how I am placing my ruler. So I'll mark that on this side and turn it around to draw out the other side. Notice that I've turned my ruler around. Then you go ahead and connect the sides. We're basically done drafting the waist to the knee, so I'm opening up my pattern paper so that I can conclude the rest of the pant pattern. So what I'm doing here is to marking my center line measurement. Mine is 5.25 if you remember. Then I'm going to extend that line all the way down. So what we need to do now is to mark our trouser length measurement. So from my knee line is 19 inches. I'm going to place my 19 inches on the knee line, and then I'll go ahead and mark my trouser measurement What I'm working with here is 33 inches. Then after you have marked your trouser length, you're supposed to mark at least 2 inches for your M allowance, but I'm using 1 year because I am trying to manage the paper I have here. So please ensure to use at least 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches. So I mark that and I'm going to draw out a straight line. Then I'll go ahead and label that as M, or you can decide to use trouser length. Then the last line will be the M allowance. On the trouser length line, you are going to insert your trouser mouth opening divided by 2. For me, I'm working with 12 inches. So 12 divided by 2 is 6. So on each side of my center line, I'm going to be marking 3 inches. And I'll do the same thing at the allowance line. Then with my straight ruler, I'm going to connect my knee to my trouser length line. If you have any paper left after you have marked your M allowance, you do well to cut that out at this point. Now what you're going to do is to fold in your M allowance, and the reason why we're doing this is so that you don't have any shortage when you are sewing your pants, because if you just connect from your M to your allowance directly, it might be too short by the time you are folding in your M allowance. I don't know if that makes sense. So after you are done folding, you can now cut out your pattern. So here is what my front pattern looks like, and I will use this to draft my back. So I've added paper under my front pattern because I'm going to be using my front pattern as a guide to draft my back. The first thing to do is to extend all our lines: the waist, the hip, the crotch, the knee, the trouser length, and the M allowance. But because of my coverage, I'm going to only extend the waist, the hip, the crotch, and the knee line first. Then afterwards, I'm going to do the rest. So the first thing I'll be doing is to find the midpoint between those 2 points I'm touching. That's the center line and the line that joins to the crotch curve. I'll find the midpoint and make a mark there. We're going to be using it to construct our back crotch curve. The next thing to do is to measure out our crotch extension. You remember where our crotch extension is. You are going to mark that. Mine is about 2.25, and you are going to mark that above that midpoint we made earlier. That's from the waistline, you mark it upward. So I've made a mark there. We are going to be using that as well when we are making our crotch curve for the back. Then on the crotch line, you are going to extend by 2 inches. From where your front crotch ends, you are going to extend outwards by 2 inches. That's like standard for most women. Just so that you don't draw your crotch curve too deep, you are going to mark at angle 45 about 2 inches. So I have marked mine, and you are going to connect all these points that we just made together. I'll show you how to. So with your French curve, you are going to connect the first 2 points together like so, and from there we are going to connect to our extension at the back with a gentle curve. So I'm going to change to the other curve, that's my hip curve, and I will use that to complete the back crotch line. Just watch as I am going to do mine. Then the next thing you are going to do is you are going to place your tape rule at your back extension. Then on your waistline, you are going to mark your waist circumference divided by 4. I've gone ahead to mark mine, and then you are going to add 1 inch for the back dart. Then we're going to go over to the hip line. Then you're also going to extend outward by 1 inch. You also do the same at the crotch line. You also extend outward by 1 inch. Then you go ahead to connect your new waist marking to your new hip mark for the back. Then I'll go ahead to draw out my back waistline. You'll notice that it is slanted and not straight like the front. Then the next thing to do will be to connect my crotch to my hip line. Then I'll proceed to mark 1 inch outward on my knee line on both sides. Notice I'm marking 1 inch on both sides. Then with my curved ruler, I'm going to connect the knee to my crotch on both sides. To drive the back waist dart, what you're going to do is you measure the distance between the center line and the line that runs to your front crotch. You are going to mark that whatever it is, you mark that on the waistline, and you find a position around your back crotch line, and you also mark the same result. And then you draw a line, so this line will be parallel to your back crotch line. Then I'm trying to remove my front pattern so that I can draw out my back curve and that properly. So I'm going to measure that distance again. Mine is 3.25. I've gone ahead to measure it, and then I will draw a straight line. For the dart, for most adults, between 4 inches to 5 inches is fine, so I'll be using 5 inches. I'll go ahead and mark that. My dart allowance is 1 inch, so I'm going to share it 0.5 on each side of the dart line, and I'm going to draw out my dart legs. And what I'm going to do now is to open up my pattern so that I can draft the rest of my trouser. What I'm going to do is on the hem line or on the trouser length line, I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides as you see me do, and I'm going to do the same at the hem allowance. I'm marking 1 inch each. Then with a straight ruler, I'm going to connect my hem line to my knee line. I'm going to do that on both sides. On the sewing allowance line, I'm going to use a gentle curve to connect that to my trouser length line, and that's because that line is no longer straight. When you do yours, you will understand what I'm saying. At this point, we are done with drafting our pants for the jumpsuit, and then I will just go ahead and cut out all the unwanted parts. I have separated my front from my back pattern, so I'm just drawing out all my lines just so that you can see what the back pattern looks like. When I'm done drawing out all my lines, then I'll go ahead to label each of the lines appropriately. Because you are making a jumpsuit, whatever your sewing allowance for your top is, that's the side of your top, you add the same to the side of this pant. So for example, I usually use 1 inch, so on that side of my pant, I'm going to add 1 inch to both the front and the back pattern. Now for the side of your pants where I'm touching now, you're going to add 0.5. Then you go over to your crotch, you also add 0.5. At the top of your pattern, both for the front and back, you're also going to add 0.5. That will be your allowance to join all your panels together. Now for the front pattern, I'm marking out 1 inch, which is going to serve as my starting line, and from that point I'm going to mark downwards my half length. The one I'm working with is 15.5 inches, and I've gone ahead to mark that. Then with my straight ruler, I'm going to make a line at that point. Then I'll go ahead to label the line as the waistline. From the starting line, I'm going to come downwards by 1 inch, and this is going to serve as my shoulder line. And from the shoulder line this time, I'm going to mark downwards the armhole depth. The one I'm working with is 6 inches. So I'll mark that and make a straight line. And then I'm going to find the midpoint between the shoulder and the armhole. So mine will be 3 inches. I'll mark that and make a straight line. Then that's going to be my across chest line. Then I'll go over to the shoulder line and mark half of my shoulder measurement. Then on the across chest and the armhole line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurements minus 0.75. That's like standard for most people. Then I'll connect all the 3 points together. Now on the chest line or the armhole line, I'm going to insert 1/4 of my total bust measurement. So the bust I'm working with is 34 inches. So 34 divided by 4 is 8.5. Then I went ahead to add my 1 inch sewing allowance. Then with my armhole curve, I'm going to draw out my armhole shape. Then I went on to insert 1/4 of my waist measurement on my waistline plus 1 inch sewing allowance. Then with my straight ruler, I'm going to connect these 2 points together. Then on the starting line, I'm going to mark my neck width. Then I'll go downwards and mark my neck depth. The one I'm working with is 3 by 3, so I've gone ahead to mark that. Then I will use my armhole curve to make my neck curve. Then at this point, I'll connect the shoulder to the neckline like so. Then go ahead and add my sewing allowances. The shoulder sewing allowance I'm using is 0.5 inch. And then I will add the sewing allowance to my armhole as well. When we're done with that, then we can cut out our pattern at this point. To achieve our cowl design, you can slash open from your armhole chest, but for me, I don't want it to be too deep. I'll go upwards by about 1 inch. You can even go as high as 2 inches if you want it to be moderately opened. Then I'll mark my 1 inch, make a straight line. Then I'm going to slash open the line from there. When you are cutting, try to cut as close as possible to the armhole sewing allowance, but don't cut through completely. When you're done with that, you're going to determine how much volume you want on your cowl design. For me, about 7 to 8 inches is fine. Here is a tip you should note when you're cutting your cowl. You know, on a normal day when we're cutting like our front bodies, you fold your fabric into two like this. But in the case of a cowl, we're not going to be cutting like that because you want it to drape nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to be folding our fabric on bias. I'll show you what I mean now. So you hold the tip of your fabric and then you will match one side of your fabric with the other side. I'll try this again for those who don't know how to fold their fabric on bias. Just watch how I folded my fabric, and that is the way you're going to fold yours. Then when you are done, you are going to match your pattern, that's the lower part of your pattern, to the folded edge of your fabric. Just watch what I just did. Sorry, my pattern ripped off when I was moving it around. After you have secured the lower part of your pattern, you are going to open up the area where you are going to have the cowl effect as much as you want to. Like I said earlier, about 7 to 8 inches is fine for me. Then from the tip of your neckline, you are going to draw a straight line to the end, to the folded end of your fabric, and you are going to cut through that line. I am just using this fabric for illustration purposes. So I'll be using my hand to show you how you are going to cut your pattern out. The second tip is that if you are making a sleeveless, we'll make a little adjustment to the pattern. So you come to the shoulder line and you mark inwards 1 inch, and then with your armhole curve you are going to draw out a new armhole. And how you're going to do is you place your French curve in such a way that it follows through with the initial armhole curve you have going on. So notice how I have placed my armhole curve, and then you draw out your new armhole curve, and then you cut out that part. It just helps your sleeveless tops or dresses to sit nicely. So I'm just going ahead to cut out that part we don't need anymore. You are going to repeat this process for both the front and the back. But if the outfit you are making is going to have sleeves, please ignore this step. For the back pattern, it is the basic back we'll be using, but for the sake of beginners, I might just go ahead and run through that briefly. I've gone ahead to mark my starting line, and from there I'm going to mark downwards 1 inch, and this is going to serve as my shoulder line. Then I'll go ahead and make a straight line at that point. I will then label that line as my shoulder line. From the starting line, I'm going to mark downwards my half length measurement. The one I'm working with is 15.5. It's the same as I used in the front. I'll go ahead and mark that, then make a straight line. And I'll label that line as my waistline. Then from the shoulder line, I'm going to mark downwards my armhole. The armhole I'm working with is 6 inches. I'll go ahead and mark that and also make a line at that point. I'm going to label that line as my armhole line. On my shoulder line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement. Then I'll find the midpoint between my shoulder line and my armhole line. Mine is 3 inches. I'll mark that and make a straight line. So on that line we just made, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement minus 0.25, and I'm going to mark the same point on the armhole. Then I'll connect all the 3 points together. On the armhole line, I'm going to insert my bust measurement divided by 4. That's a quarter of my total bust measurement, and then I'll add 1 inch sewing allowance. I'll do the same on the waist. I'll insert 1/4 of my waist circumference and add 1 inch sewing allowance. If your back is going to have a waist dart, you go ahead and add an extra 1 inch. And now we can connect our armhole to the waist. If your back is going to have a waist dart, on your waistline you are going to mark half of your nipple to nipple measurement. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 7 inches. Half of that is 3.5. I went ahead to mark that on both the waistline and the armhole line. Then you connect that with a straight line. And then on the waistline you are going to mark 0.5 each, and then connect that back to the armhole like so. And now your waist dart is complete. And now with your armhole curve, you are going to draw out your armhole. On the starting line, you are going to mark your neck width. Because we are working with the back, your neck depth will be about 1 inch, which is the same as my shoulder line. So with my curved ruler, I am going to draw out my neck curve, and then I'll connect the armhole to the neck. And after this, I'm going to add my sewing allowances. I use 0.5 on my armhole, 0.5 also on my shoulder line. And at this point, you can cut out your pattern. If you watched up to this point, thank you so much for coming along with me. Do well to subscribe if you haven't. You can share this video with your friends. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll do well to answer all of them. and see you all in my next video. Bye.